So you know how everybody always says that Halloween is the one that started it all, the granddaddy of slasher movies. While not the very first, the one that broke the subgenre out into the mainstream? I was thinking the other day, Halloween didn't just do that in 1978. It did that 3 times. Hey, what's up everybody? Nick here, and today I want to talk to you about 3 movies titled Halloween that all did the same thing. This idea came to me randomly. I was sitting there thinking about, you know how everybody always says, oh, Halloween's the one that broke the door down. That's what started all the imitators. After Halloween, you had a rash of them. Friday the 13th, April Fool's Day, Terror Train, A Nightmare on Elm Street, you name it. They all came after Halloween. That is the movie that really jump-started this craze of a masked killer going around killing people. And nobody in their right mind would even deny that it was the one that kicked down the door. Sure, you had movies before that like Peeping Tom, Black Christmas, even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but none of those caught on at the time like Halloween did. It was just an instance of right place, right time. Halloween coming out when it did and having the impact that it did changed horror history. But the 1978 film isn't the only one to do that. I love talking about Halloween with people that are fans of other big horror franchises over Halloween, because of course jokingly I say Michael Myers is the king, but then I start to go down this rabbit hole and I'm like, no, I actually think he is like factually the king. Like he was the one that did it and made it cool so many times before all these other movies did. Look, everybody knows the story of the original Halloween. I don't need to rehash that with you guys. This movie was made on a shoestring budget in 3 weeks in the spring of 1978. It debuted in the fall of 1978 and did not catch on right away. It wasn't until weeks after its release where people started to see it and the word of mouth started to spread, and it caught like wildfire. It changed John Carpenter's life, Deborah Hill's life, Jamie Lee Curtis's life, everybody's life involved with this. And out of it came something that nobody involved in this film ever foresaw coming and had no intention of even setting up. A long-running franchise that has gone for almost 50 years now, that has made hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office, that has tens of millions of fans across the world. Halloween did that. It did it first, and it did it best. And then after the original Halloween, you would get into the 1980s. And look, the 1980s are widely regarded by a lot of horror fans as the golden age of horror films, specifically the subgenre of slasher. If that's your thing, the 80s was where it was at. You saw a cheap knockoff of Halloween every few weeks, it seemed like, playing at a local movie theater. And some of them are great. That's not to say that they don't have merit. They absolutely do. But Halloween really started that. It invigorated that. And then ironically, Halloween was largely absent from the 1980s. You had Halloween 2 in 1981, which was a box office hit. But after that, Michael Myers didn't return until 1988. After the attempted experiment of Halloween 3, which I love, but it bombed at the box office and pissed everybody off, Michael just disappeared off the face of the earth until the very end of the 1980s. And in Michael's place, people like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees were born. They ruled that era. They were the hot commodity. When Halloween came back in 1988, sure, it was successful relative to the budget, but Halloween 4 was not a big success in comparison to A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 or 4 or Friday the 13th Part 2 or Part 3. It just wasn't even comparable. Those movies were killing it, and Michael's return was largely muted. And as quick as he was here, he was gone. Now, after the era of self-aware meta horror films in the 90s that was ruled by Scream, we would go into the 2000s. And the new trend would become remakes. Now, before anybody jumps the gun and says, oh, Halloween didn't do it first, there were other remakes before that, Black Christmas, for example, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And when I think about that, it's honestly ironic because, like, those original movies came out right before Halloween as well. It's almost like this was just the natural progression of things. But let's not kid ourselves. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 2003 was a big hit commercially, but Black Christmas really wasn't. And it was not popular at the time to be a horror remake yet. Until 2007 came around, and Rob Zombie's Halloween broke box office records, and it held the Labor Day opening weekend until Shang-Chi dethroned it over a decade later. That's right, a Rob Zombie R-rated remake of a movie from 1978 held the Labor Day opening weekend record for over a decade. That even blows my mind. And you can draw a through line from that movie's release and its reception to the explosion of modern horror remakes after that. Not long after Halloween, what came back? Friday the 13th, then A Nightmare on Elm Street. And you would see over the next handful of years so many horror movies getting remade. My Bloody Valentine, The Stepfather, you name it. Everybody was coming out of the woodwork and going, we need to redo this classic movie because Halloween did it, it made a ton of money, this is the time. So just like in 1978, Rob Zombie's Halloween wasn't the first of its kind, but I would argue it's the one that, again, broke the door down and made it cool. And for the better part of a decade, that was the era that we lived in. Remakes, reboots, retoolings, whatever you want to call it. People were taking these classic properties and they were giving them a new face. They thought that it would be a face for generations to come, but most of the time they were one-offs because even if they did get a sequel or a prequel in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre's case, the returns on the next one were vastly diminished compared to the first movie. And so many of these companies would be back at square one when they thought they were starting to build something that was fresh and exciting and was going to make them money. It was gone as quickly as it came. But then I think that a lot of these rights issues and a lot of these franchises begin after that point too. Because let's not forget, after Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie, you saw a rights battle take place with the Halloween franchise. Nowhere near as public as Friday the 13th, but a rights battle nonetheless. A Nightmare on Elm Street with New Line fighting with the Craven estate for years in court. Because I think a lot of these people that owned these IPs were like, these are popular again. They're going to make money. We can't just let people make these movies. We need to make that money. Shit, we're still seeing that these days with some franchises like Saw. But after the remake craze finally died down and everybody had seen every property they once loved get resurrected to okay-ish results at best, I would say, we got into the requel era, the legacy sequel era. And who was the one that really broke the door down and made that cool? It was Halloween again. Now look, this isn't just my opinion. Someone's going to say in the comments, well, it wasn't the first legacy sequel. There were legacy sequels before this. Yeah, I'm sure. However, you cannot deny this is what really kickstarted it. Halloween from 2018, while I'm just fine with this movie, and I know a lot of people love it, this movie made $250 million at the box office. If I'm not mistaken, it is still the highest grossing R-rated slasher ever. Period. Point blank, full stop. That's this movie. And once Halloween was a huge success, you saw a bunch of these franchises come back, and not just come back, try to do what Halloween 2018 did as well. Look no further than Scream. Look no further than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We need to make a sequel to these original movies, or one specific movie with some returning characters, but also an infusion of new characters, and we'll kind of create a new timeline, an alternate universe. It is all the rage right now. Everybody is doing it still. Now, I think it's starting to peter out at this point, and I think we're going to get into a new era, and I'm kind of nervous, but also excited to see what that is. But Halloween, again, for the third time, kicked down the door for a new era of horror films. Because just like the previous two iterations before it, it was one of the most successful, if not the most successful, of its time. It got people talking. The word of mouth on it, at least from fans, was undeniable. You couldn't go anywhere online or in a circle of friends without somebody talking about this movie. And having lived through Rob Zombie's Halloween, I can tell you it was the same thing. When I was in school at 13 years old, people were talking about that movie. It was a big deal, just like Halloween 2018 was, and I'm sure just like Halloween 1978 was. It's honestly just crazy to think about. Like, I sit here and I think about Halloween wasn't just responsible for so many franchises we got in 1978 with its first film. It was responsible for so many other modern horror movies that I love and remakes that I actually really dig. And some of them I hate, but Halloween was responsible for all of it. If Halloween 2018 had come out and bombed and gotten terrible reviews, do you think you would have seen an explosion of requels? No. If Halloween 2007 had come out and it bombed and everybody hated it and it made no money, do you think we would have gotten even more horror remakes? Probably not. If Halloween 1978 had come out and bombed and nobody liked it, do you think we would have gotten a bunch of slasher movies in the 1980s? No, probably not. So what's my point here? I guess what I'm saying here in a really long-winded way is Halloween truly is and was at the forefront of literally anything and everything that we know and love as horror movies these days. Sure, not found footage or stuff like that, but slashers. Like, as a slasher fan, I don't think we have 95% of what we have in any era without these iterations of Halloween. And ironically, they're all titled Halloween, which is just weird and perfect at the same time because a Halloween reset the horror landscape 3 times. It's just wild. And it only adds fuel to my fire and my bias of saying Michael Myers is the king. Because I do think he's the king. I made a video on this. I think the numbers back it up, especially nowadays. He's the one still going strong. I don't think if Jason came back tomorrow, that movie's making $250 million. Or A Nightmare on Elm Street. Sure, those characters ruled certain eras, absolutely. But Michael Myers is still on top. Like, it's 2025, and he's still on top. So I don't know, guys. What do you think? Have you ever stopped and thought about this and been like, wow, Halloween really did kick down the door multiple times. It's a trailblazer in a lot of ways. Yes, that means Rob Zombie's Halloween is a trailblazer. That might be crazy for some of you to like square and like actually say out loud, but it's kind of true. I don't know, I just thought this was a really interesting idea, and I was just sitting here percolating on this thought, and I was like, I want to make a video because like this is kind of wild. And when you go down the rabbit hole and realize that like, again, when these new iterations of this movie came out, the movies that came before it, their remakes often came before it as well. I don't know, call that coincidence or just the way it was supposed to be, but I find that really cool. But I want to know what you guys think. Have you ever thought about this? Does that kind of blow your mind? Do you agree with me that Halloween 3 different times has reset the horror landscape and has given us largely everything in the slasher subgenre that we know and love today? Whatever you think about this topic, I want to hear down below in the comments section. So make sure you discuss with me. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching the video. Make sure to leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out.